Hey, this is Pastor Bunjee Garrett, and I want to take this opportunity to present you with another word of encouragement. Well, I have no doubt that you've already heard about the alarming rise of anti-Semitism that's happening all around the world. And in order to quantify this recent increase in anti-Semitism, well, I want to consider how Mark Hitchcock explains it in his recent article, which is titled, Global Rise of Anti-Semitism, a Harbinger of the Approaching Tribulation. Now, in this article, Hitchcock declares this, and I quote him, in the United States, there has been a 400% increase in anti-Semitic incidents since October the 7th. In other words, over the last month, since, Hamas terrorists invaded southern Israel, we've actually witnessed a 400% increase in anti-Semitic incidents against Jews here in the U.S. Now, according to the Anti-Defamation League, there's actually been more than 300 such incidents that include harassment, vandalism, and assaults on Jewish Americans. For example, it was just last Friday when an anti-Israel activist in Indiana tried to drive her car into a Jewish school. Thankfully, she missed, and she ended up crashing into the building next door, which ironically belongs to an anti-Semitic hate group. That's right. An anti-Semitic terrorist drove her car into an anti-Semitic facility, only to then get arrested for her anti-Semitism. There's also a Cornell student who was just recently arrested and charged by the DOJ after allegedly making explicit threats against Jewish men and women and babies. And according to the charges, this sophomore student there at Cornell was threatening to bring an assault rifle to the campus and start shooting Jews. And if the charges are correct, well, then we can rejoice in knowing that this terrorist has been taken into custody. Sadly, things didn't go so well for an elderly Jewish man who decided to carry the national flag of Israel to a rally that was taking place in LA this past Sunday. He was viciously attacked by a pro-Hamas protester who reportedly struck the 69-year-old man in the head with a megaphone. The victim, his name is Paul Kessler, well, he ended up suffering a severe head injury after falling to the ground, and it was just yesterday when he succumbed to his injuries. Listen, this is just a scratch on the surface of the 400% rise in violence that's currently being committed against the Jews here in America. And in order to grasp this situation, it'll help you to know that 3 out of 10 Americans between the ages of 18 and 24 actually believe that the U.S. ought to support Hamas in this conflict rather than showing support to Israel. And 26% believe that the only way to solve the conflict there in the Middle East is to destroy Israel and then give all of the land to Hamas and the Arabs who call themselves Palestinians. Simply put, there's a growing wave of anti-Semitism among younger Americans here, and with that being the case, well, it's important for us to understand the connection between anti-Semitism and violence. According to a recent study conducted by the ADL, and this is in conjunction with the University of Chicago, those who hold an anti-Semitic view are 3 times more likely to support violence as a means for achieving their political goals. And the report, which was just published on October the 18th, this report helps us to see that, and I quote them here, highly anti-Semitic Americans are 3 times more likely to support violence to achieve certain political goals compared to the general population. Now, these findings, which were based on a survey that was conducted back in March, this survey helps us to see that this is not only an issue that's found in fringe groups on the far right, but the same survey also revealed how the same hatred of Israel results in the same anti-Semite violence from those on the far left. And here's how they put it in this report, and I quote them again here. They say, highly anti-Semitic Americans, defined as individuals who accept multiple anti-Jewish tropes, are more likely to support political violence for causes they believe in, whether on the political right or on the political left. In other words, listen, those who are on the fringe of both political parties here in the U.S. are oftentimes anti-Semitic Americans who are more prone to engage in violence in order to, push forward their political agenda. As for the far right, the survey revealed that highly anti-Semitic Americans are 2 to 3 times more likely to support political violence to achieve far-right goals, such as preventing the teaching of critical race theory, preventing Trump's prosecution, and preserving the rights of whites. In other words, the white nationalists who are on the far right of the political aisle, they oftentimes embrace anti-Semitic beliefs, which can result in violent means to a political end. And listen, the same survey also went on to reveal this, that highly anti-Semitic Americans are more than twice as likely to support political violence for goals associated with the left, such as restoring the federal right to abortion, preventing police brutality, and preserving voting rights for minorities. Now, from this, we can see that there are those on the left who claim to be opposed to racism while simultaneously embracing the racist ideologies of anti-Semitism. And this should come as no surprise, especially as we consider how they oppose police brutality, right, while defending the right of Hamas terrorists to brutally murder innocent civilians there in southern Israel. These are the same leftists who insist that the state of Israel is guilty of war crimes like genocide, while simultaneously calling for the genocide of the Jews. So yeah, these leftists have no problem with the jihadists who are publicly calling for the genocide of the Jews, and it's for this reason that they're quick to defend the rights of the Arabs living there in the Gaza Strip, while simultaneously insisting that the children of Israel must be destroyed from the river to the sea so that Palestine can finally be free. Sadly, these pro-Palestinian Americans who are publicly calling for the extermination of the Jews, what they're failing to realize is that the Muslim leaders that they're actually supporting are completely opposed to their leftist ideologies. Case in point, it was just last Saturday at a pro-Palestinian protest in London. That's when a pro-Hamas activist from somewhere in North America, well, he found himself in the middle of an argument with three Muslim women who were trying to help him to understand that Islam does not allow gender-confused kids to receive puberty blockers. And one gal even declared, in some religions they accept that, but in our religion, you can't do that. It came as a surprise to this North American protester there to support Hamas. And listen, when I see those on the left defending Hamas, I'm just baffled by the fact that, they're supporting those who are opposed to the LGBTQIA plus community. As a matter of fact, it was back in February of 2016 when a leading commander of Hamas was actually executed under the charges that he engaged in homosexual activity and theft. Not only that, but those who come out of the closet there in the Gaza Strip, they've actually sealed their fate. And the reason why is because their family will probably engage in a mercy killing, and then the police will not respond to this sort of domestic violence against homosexuals. Or how about Iran? It was back in 1979 when the Islamic Revolution there in Iran resulted in homosexuality becoming a crime that's punishable by death in Iran. And in January 2019, a man in Iran was hanged after being found guilty of having sex with another man. The leaders in Yemen also follow Sharia law, under which homosexuality is illegal. And according to the law, unmarried gay men will be punished with 100 whiplashes or 1 year in prison. And at the same time, married gay men actually face death by stoning, while gay women can be imprisoned for up to 3 years. Similar laws are found in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Nigeria, Qatar, Somalia, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, and the United Arab Emirates, where, consensual homosexual relations are punishable in several different ways, including hanging. That's right, the pro-LGBTQIA leftists who support the jihad against Israel, they're actually supporting Sharia law, which is completely opposed to their sexual perversions and their LGBTQIA plus agenda. And not only that, but Sharia law is also opposed to equal rights for women, as well as the so-called right to have an abortion. And according to most imams, abortion is considered unlawful and a major sin in Islam, regardless of the stage of pregnancy. And while abortion is permissible if the pregnancy poses an exceeding danger to the mother, this exception must be confirmed by a qualified and trustworthy medical report. Simply put, the leftists who are supporting Hamas have actually aligned themselves with a religious system that has criminalized the rights that they value the most. Now, in light of these things, it's important for us to realize that those who are ready to engage in anti-Semite violence here in America, they're simultaneously fighting for a form of government that they also oppose. And so it just makes no sense. If these people were to come here and try to impose Sharia law, they would all of a sudden find themselves in a real conundrum. And yet this only goes to show that all of this, it's not based on reason, because it's completely irrational. This is not based on reason. This is clearly spiritual. And as we watch this new wave of anti-Semitism, which threatens to shake up an already unstable world, well, I encourage you to remember that these things must come to pass, just as Jesus promised, because these are the things that will lead us into the end of days. It's actually in Matthew chapter 24 where Jesus says this. He says, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows." Now listen, I realize that this doesn't sound like an encouraging word, and yet that all depends on your perspective. That all depends on your perspective. Because listen, the Lord Jesus also declared this. He says, "When these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near." Listen, rather than worrying about all of the things that are happening here in this world, we need to keep our focus where it belongs. We need to look up and lift up our heads and realize that our redemption is drawing nearer and nearer every day. With that being the case, let's look for every opportunity to share the gospel of grace with the unbelievers who are on both sides of the aisle. And as we preach the good news of Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit will help us so that we can continue to fight the good fight of faith, and all for the glory of God.